up, fam? Today I had on a very special human, Erwin Rafael McManus. He's a renowned life architect, award-winning author, and artist. With over 1 million book sales and translations into multiple languages, he has captivated audiences in stadiums across 70 countries on 5 continents. His creative expertise has extended to consulting for esteemed organizations from the NFL to the Pentagon. For 3 decades, Erwin has advised CEOs, athletes, celebrities, and billion-dollar companies, helping them overcome limitations and unlock their personal genius. As the founder and lead pastor of Mosaic, a global spiritual movement, he has inspired millions and leads impactful humanitarian initiatives alongside his wife, Kim McManus. He continues to coach leaders and entrepreneurs worldwide, sharing his wisdom through The Arena, McManus Mastermind, and the 7 frequencies of communication. I absolutely loved this episode. We had epic conversations. Guys, if you like the show, please share it with a homie or on social media, and definitely subscribe. It truly means the world to me, and you're helping to be a part of this consciousness revolution that we're experiencing today. Enjoy the show. Erwin, what a great pleasure it is to have you in the studio, brother. It's we met a year ago at Lewis House's birthday, and I thought, I got to have this amazing man on my podcast, and a year later, here we are. So I'm very grateful for you.
Oh, it's good to be together, man. It's good to see you again.
Absolutely, absolutely. Erwin, if I just ask you, when was your last oh shit moment? What is the first thing that comes to mind from like the last few weeks?
Wow, I'm not even sure. I don't even know. I actually don't even think like that. Probably.
Could be positive or negative. It could be anything, really. It's just like, oh shit, right? Anything that comes to mind.
Yeah. My life is almost a daily experience of unexpected. So I think there's something probably every single day. But this morning when I got up, my wife's assistant was downstairs. I was running down to get a pair of pants, and I'm there in my boxers. So I would say just an hour ago, I'm like, okay, this is not good.
That was definitely it.
Yeah, no. I mean, just talking about the most recent. Every day seems to have something pretty significant, you know. But I told you, just before we went on, I had to have a surgery. I had a bone drilled into my head so they could reattach the ligament in my head, and that was kind of one of those moments where you're like, dang, how many more things do I have to have happen to me? You ever been in that kind of moment where I'm with the surgeon, and I said, what are the chances of my ligament detaching? And he said, like 1 in a million. You're like, you're that rare.
No way.
You're like that rare person who's ever had that happen to you. And I go, well, I'm so glad to be unique.
Right?
And he walked me through. He goes, there's 3 different ways I can fix this. And the most intense thing is this. And that's what they had to do. Nothing else worked. And so for 6 months, I've been in and out of different surgeries. I've been, through massive recovery. It drives me. And I'm really physical. I love exercising. I love competing.
Yeah.
And each time you can't lift anything for, a couple of months, or you can't. In fact,
a couple of months.
The first time I had the surgery, the surgeon told me, you can't lift anything. But, anything can be broadly defined. So I'm home. It's about to rain. I pick up a cushion in the front yard, and my eye starts bleeding. I mean, literally.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, just blood starts coming out of them, So I thought, I guess they really mean it. That I can't lift anything.
Oh, man.
So I've been in those kind of moments for the last few months.
Yeah.
And I remember at one point I was with the surgeon, and they couldn't fix my eye. It just kept dropping and dropping and dropping. And I remember she was worried because she thought, I would sue her or something like that. And I told her, I said, and I knew she was going through something. I knew she was going through cancer. And I investigated. I asked her, hey, are you okay? And she told me she was going through some radiation and everything like that. And I said, hey, I want you to know something. Like, I'm never going to sue you. I'm not upset. I don't blame you. This is just something that happens. And you could tell she was kind of shocked. And I said, I just want you to be able to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah, but we hate that this happened to the nicest person we know. And I said, no, you should be happy it happened to the nicest person you know. Because I feel no anger, no bitterness. Mm-hmm. There's no need to blame. And as I'm driving back, my eye looked like Quasimodo. It was just like dropping and dropping.
Wow.
And I had this thought. I thought, I can't control if I look hideous, but I can control if I'm kind. and loving. And I just had this like overwhelming, like wonderful moment of
like an opening.
Going, this is a great life experiment for me.
Yeah, I can only imagine, especially too, because, you used to be a fashion designer.
I still am.
You still am.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And the times that I've seen you, always look real good. You look fly. You're always looking good. So I think that's probably something that you care about your appearance and how you dress, and right. So.
There's an irony in that is that there's a psychological assessment I use with a lot of top leaders, and it identifies image management, how much energy you spend on how other people perceive you.
Talk to me about this. Yeah. This is interesting.
Yeah, on a scale from 1 to 99, most of the highly successful people I know in their 90s, they really do care about how people see them, which drives them to a high level of fame, celebrity.
Yes.
And I'm an 11, and so out of
really,
so I'm so low on that scale, and it's interesting because when I was talking to the surgeon, I said, You're actually very fortunate because I know it's hard to believe, but I have almost no ego. Like I just don't have that need when I wake up in the morning of worrying about how other people see me.
But you looking good is for yourself then, or are you dressing a certain way, or having style or a vibe? How do you relate
just
that?
Because I see life as art and beauty.
Got it. So that's an art and beauty thing. It's not about how others perceive you. That's just you feel good looking a certain way.
I just like creating things that are interesting and beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was playing padel, the sport, paddle tennis.
Paddle, yeah.
And
it's fun.
It was on my birthday, and I go for a ball, and the racket hits the ground, bounces back up, explodes in my face. And I'm laying on the ground. I'm playing with my family and friends. They go, "Oh, stop faking it. Get up. You're just kidding." When I got up, my face was just caked in blood. I'm gushing blood out of my face. They have to take me to a surgeon. He can't fix my face. Second surgeon, too complicated, can't fix your face. This is in Mexico. I go to a third surgeon. They bring him in, and she says, "Okay, I can fix this." They had to put stitches, 3 different layers. And after I was done, I had to fly home, and I looked like Frankenstein. I mean, I was just stitched across my face. And it's so funny. My wife, Kim, said, "Honey, if you get plastic surgery, no one would think badly of you." And I said, why would I get plastic surgery? She goes, "Well, it's okay if you get plastic surgery to fix that giant scar across your face." And I said, "Why would I want to get rid of the scar? The scar is a part of my story."
Yeah.
And it was so funny because we have such different perspectives on image management, and hers were, "It's okay if you cover it up," and mine was, "Are you kidding? I earned the scar."
Yeah, that's funny. Man, I want to take that test. Yeah, I mean, that's super interesting. Or when your latest book, Mind Shift, I loved it. It was real, it was raw, it was authentic, it had a lot of things, and one of the first things that stuck out to me was you talked about loss of all kinds of things, right? Money, jobs, relationships, and this and that. And you said that the greatest thing you'll ever lose are relationships, people, not money.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've had an opportunity to make a amount of money, and I've also had an opportunity to lose a great deal of money. I feel like I've lost more money than I made in some ways because you don't really feel making it, but you really do feel losing it,
right?
And I think so many times we're incredibly strategic and ambitious and determined and focused to not lose our money, but we don't put the same level of intention in not losing our people.
Mm.
And having lived my life this long now, I look back and I realize, like, the worst moments in my life were not because I didn't have money or didn't have a house or didn't have things. It's because my relationships were broken. Mm. And when those bad times in life are matched with great people in your life, you actually remember them as great memories. And so I actually started mapping my life going, wow, my great memories have nothing to do with my material success or physical success. They have all everything to do with the relationships in my life.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really trying to highlight in the book, because there's 2 conflicting chapters. The opening chapters, it's all about people. Mm-hmm. And then the third chapter is you can't take everyone with you. Mm. And in some sense, it's a perfect assessment. Right. There's some people, what they need to really focus on is it's all about people. And they need to realize that people are the highest value in life. And if you sacrifice the people in your life for the things you want, you're going to regret your life.
Mm-hmm.
But chapter 3 is for other people when it says you can't take everyone with you. Some people are so much about people that they actually lose themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they love people; it's they need to be loved by people. Mm-hmm. It goes beyond accepting others. It's being controlled by the need for acceptance, and you cannot elevate throughout your life if you're not willing to let life, in a sense, filter through who's actually a part of your life. Because it depends. And I'm Latino. I think you are as well. And but in a lot of dominant Latin culture, family is more important than like your uniqueness or your success or your achievements. Mm-hmm. In fact, you might even be pulled toward, I know you want to be this or a doctor or an artist or whatever, but family is more important. And there's this mindset that the people you have right now are the people you have all your life. But that's not necessarily true.
Right.
And because I realize in my own life, this has been a challenging thing for me and Kim, my wife, is that to accept that we are seasonal. Not just that you have people who are seasonal in your life, but you are seasonal in other people's lives. There are seasons where I've helped people and I've been there for them, and then their life shifted and they needed someone else or needed something else. And for me to try to hold on to them would actually be a disservice to them.
Yeah.
I remember I was speaking one time talking about pursuing your dreams and following that unique narrative in your life. And one of our friends moved to Paris to become a chef. And my wife's like, why do you have to tell people to follow their dreams? We're losing really great people. And I said, would you rather them be close to us and lose what they were created to become?
Yeah.
Or go away from us, but discover who they were supposed to be?
Right. You also said that, I found really interesting. You said the people that say we're here to stay for the long run tend to be the ones that aren't there to stay for the long run.
They never stay.
And the ones that don't ever say it are the ones that end up somehow staying.
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
It's just such an interesting thing.
Yeah. We hear it all the time. No, we're here for life. And I'm like, you don't even know what life is going to bring.
Yeah.
And because you're not static.
Right.
You're not static.
Right.
You're dynamic. And I've been married for 40 years to the same person. Yeah, 40 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's nothing short of a miraculous feat.
I was going to ask you that later.
Yeah, I mean, for her to stay with me, it's a miracle, right? But we're not the same people. Who we were 40 years ago.
Yeah,
is so dramatically different, and so we've had to, in a sense, reinvent our relationship. Yeah, at least 40 times, if not 400 times.
Is that the secret right there? Is that the secret, the reinvention, allowing yourself to reinvent and just sort of re-accepting each other in new lights?
It is, because if you are committed to the person you married, you're demanding that person stay static all their life.
And you're not staying static.
And I'm not going to stay static, and she's not going to stay static. So I have to, in a sense, recommit to her continuously. Yeah. Through her change, through her development, through her growth, and sometimes through her struggles.
And is that something I'm asking you this as a single man, but there's a school of thought that says, hey, when when you meet somebody, you have to have that full body yes, no matter what. And then there's a school of thought of like, hey, look, like, honestly, no, there's no such thing. There's no romanticism around this full body yes. Like, it's just something that grows on you and you dedicate to the growth and this and that. Do you have a preference on one of those schools of thought?
I don't think it's about the other person at all. And, when I met Kim, my wife was an orphan.
Okay.
She was abandoned.
How old were you, by the way, when you met?
25 when we got married, 22 when we met.
Okay.
And I met this young woman getting her master's degree. She was an orphan, lived in a foster home from the age of 8 to 18.
Wow.
All of her clothes had come from the Salvation Army. She had 9 brothers and sisters who became drug addicts, drug dealers, homeless, criminals. She started walking herself to a church and then making sure she finished school, got a scholarship to college, all this on her own, having left starved, eating nothing but ketchup and turnips for 3 weeks in a government project.
Wow.
And when I met her and as I got to know her, I thought to myself, it'd be a real privilege to love this person.
Wow. It would be a real privilege to love this person.
Yeah. It wasn't about, I feel like this person loves me or what she can bring to me. I can genuinely say I didn't get married going, this person fulfills me or this person is what I'm searching for or what I need.
It's what most people tend to do.
Yeah, so marriage becomes our most selfish act. And it really was this sense of privilege of wow, this person has never heard I love you in her whole life.
Wow.
And never known someone who was devoted to them. And I get, if I choose this, I get the privilege of being that person. And so I genuinely chose Kim because I wanted the privilege of loving her.
Love that. That's beautiful.
And then what she could bring to me is what she could bring to me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What's up, guys? I hope you're enjoying the show. If you love the show, please share it with a homie. It would mean the world to me. Also want to let you know that you can check out sebastiannam.com for more resources like this, and also www.goglobal.agency, a digital marketing agency that's end-to-end, helping purpose-driven and mission-driven brands scale their impact. Again, that's goglobal.agency or sebastiannam.com. Please hit me up straight up on Instagram, DM me, ask me questions. I'd love to connect with you and see what you thought about this episode or other episodes and what you want to hear more of. Much love. Or when you talk about how many years it's taken for you, like how many years of experience in your life it's taken for you to essentially gain your respect and gain an audience and things like that. And honestly, I feel like I've been working at it for quite a long time myself, but nowadays things have changed, you know? You have kids that gain massive audiences before they even hit puberty.
Yeah.
And, there's a school that now there's a lot of like sort of, hey, build your audience and then sort of like, kind of create yourself around that, build your brand around that. And it's sort of like a little bit of a fake it till you make it type situation, right? And you said something in Mindshift that I absolutely loved. You said specifically is, are you capturing your audience or is your audience capturing you? I love that quote from the book. Mm-hmm. So how do we keep our audiences from capturing us in a world full of algorithms and trends?
It's interesting. When I was, the first time I was working on design, I was working a lot with people in Europe and in the Middle East, Israel. And over and over again, they would say to me, oh, you're not an American designer. And I never knew what it meant, but I would just nod my head and say, yes, They go, you're a European designer. And finally, after a few years of that, I had the courage to ask one of them, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And what do you mean by that? He goes, oh, American designers design based on what can sell. And European designers based on their lifestyle and an expression of who they are. And I realized, oh, everything I design is the expression of who I am. In fact, a huge part of the conversations are, will that sell to anyone? And I'm like, it'll sell to me. And I this is truly authentic to the way I live and the way I see, the way I feel things, the way I want to express myself. And I think it's true with developing an audience. If you allow an audience to tell you who you need to be for your audience to grow, your audience will grow, but you will not. And you will actually lose yourself in the process. Right. But if you are your authentic self and you allow the audience to grow based on their actual knowledge of you, that they accept you for who you are, they love the story you're telling, the life you're living, the values you're representing, whatever it may be, then that audience is with you. And there's something really, really powerful in that. Yeah. And I just made a decision years and years and years ago that I don't want to be owned by the audience. Right. And you don't need an audience to be great. You don't need an audience to do something extraordinary. You don't need an audience to do something beautiful. And you have to trust that if you create something that's true to you, that the right people will be drawn to it, and will find it.
And then you say, don't pay the price of greatness for the praise of the people.
No, don't pay the price for fame.
Don't pay the price for fame.
Yeah.
And greatness is who you really are.
Yes, because there's a difference between fame and greatness. Right. Yes. Right. And no, I think that's the right distinction, Seb, is that if you pursue fame, you're going to end up empty. Yeah. And you might end up great, but very unlikely. Okay. But if you pursue greatness, you might never be famous, but you might become famous. But you will be great, whether anyone knows you or not.
And to follow that up, you say something beautiful, which is if you keep showing up for yourself, people will show up for you. What happens when you feel like you just keep showing up for yourself and you keep showing up for yourself and nobody's showing up for you?
It doesn't matter to you because when you're actually showing up for yourself, you're not waiting for them to show up. And when people say, wait a minute, I keep showing up for myself, but they're never showing up. You go, well, then you're not showing up for yourself. You're actually showing up for them.
So ultimately, it doesn't matter. But you're saying that it will happen if you are truly showing up for yourself, and that is more of how you define greatness as well, yes?
Yes, it's because people desperately want authentic expressions of being human.
Yeah. Authentic expression. Authenticity is something that I've, in the past, myself, that I've sort of not struggled with, just thought a lot about. Because what I struggled with was the fact that I was, in fact, so many different things. I wasn't just one type of person. I wasn't just like, oh, I'm the guy who cares a lot about building business, or I'm the highly spiritual friend that always wants to talk about, God, the universe, aliens, whatever. And also the homie who can have a good time over a beer with a friend and just talk about, football the whole time, right? So I had to sort of accept all of these, being like, wait, it's okay for me to be all these things together, and that's really what I really am, and that's still authentic, even though it's a bunch of different things.
That's right.
Yeah,
everybody wants us to be one thing.
Right.
We're a universe.
Yeah, right.
And the more comfortable you are with the universe of who you are, I think the more you enjoy life, and actually the more you connect to a variety of people. And
right.
Because there's always like one thing that people want you to be all the time for them, and that's the danger with an audience. Is that an audience, when they like you doing this, they'll hate you when you change and do something else. You go, no, this has always been who I am.
But you see it. You've always seen it happen traditionally with like rock and roll bands or something, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden they drop a new album and it's different than the previous album, and they hate you.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? I'm sure you've experienced a lot of that. Being a speaker and over the time is sort of being in front of a lot of people, putting yourself out there. I'm sure people have been like, oh, Erwin's changed.
Oh, even with books. If a book feels very different than the last book, and my books tend to always feel different.
Okay.
People go, wait a minute, what's going on? What's going on here?
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. No, that's why you can't write for, the pleasure of being loved. I mean, I obviously write, and I want millions of people to read the book.
Sure.
I want millions of people to be impacted by the book.
And that's okay, right? To want to have, because you're kind of going back to the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Don't do it for the audience, right? You're showing up for yourself, but you still want to have.
Yeah. But it is in an audience because they're sitting in the intimacy of their own home reading a book. It's a one-on-one conversation.
Okay.
And you don't even get to experience viscerally that experience.
Interesting.
So you're actually giving something away that you never get to experience.
Interesting.
So it's a really beautiful thing.
That is.
If I only wanted to impact one person, I would just have lunch with you.
Yeah.
Right? I don't write books going, I don't believe that when people say, oh, if it just reaches one person, I'm going, then don't write a book. That's a terrible strategy.
Okay.
For reaching one person. Eating a meal is a better strategy.
Sure.
I write a book so that I can be in a conversation with a million different people when I can't be in the room.
Ooh, I love that. That's amazing. Thinking back into the whole sort of capturing an audience and sort of big audiences and followers, and thinking about social media. Think about, if Jesus would have had Instagram, he would have had 12 followers, right?
But a lot of haters.
A lot of haters and 12 followers.
Yeah.
And he still kept on preaching, baby.
Yeah.
So, outside of sort of a religion or religious structure, what is Jesus to you?
I don't even think about Jesus in a religious structure. So
Okay.
I only think about him outside of religious structure.
Perfect. So easy.
Yeah. I grew up incredibly irreligious.
Okay.
Not anti-religious.
Okay.
Just irreligious.
Yeah.
I never heard anybody say anything negative about religion. I just never heard anybody talk about it. And my mom was always a very deeply spiritual person. She brought a Buddha home, was a Buddhist for a while. She studied under a rabbi and became Jewish. And, she was born to Catholicism, but I don't think it stuck very well as a Catholic, And so she would just weave in and out different religious beliefs because she was searching and trying to find if there's meaning in life. She's a really brilliant person.
Amazing exposure.
Yeah.
Very unique.
Yeah. So I never grew up going, you're not allowed to explore religions. And then my only access to religion was mythology. So by the time I was in 6th grade, I read every mythology book, I think, in the library. And because I thought mythologies were the search for God too. And because, what you believe is truth and everything else is mythology, right? And so I read all these mythologies and I was trying to find common places for the human story to find out who I was. So I didn't really consider Jesus until I was studying philosophy in college. And I remember spending one day on the Old Testament and going, this can't be real. And so I laughed it off and discounted it.
Yeah.
So I was probably the last person that I would ever guess to become, quote, a follower of Jesus.
Interesting.
And I became a Socratic. I became a follower of Socrates and read, all of like Plato's work and Aristotle and was really influenced through Stoicism and a lot of those different Greek philosophies. And I think when Socrates gave his life up in his 70s for his principles, it kind of prepared me for the story of Jesus, to be honest with you. And then I hear the story of Jesus, and I'm like, well, it's a beautiful story, but I'm not sure, if it's a real story.
Okay.
And so I didn't have anything negative against it. I just didn't. I didn't know how you could rationally believe that Jesus was God. So I wasn't ready for it at first. And what really happened to me was I was desperately searching for meaning in life and trying to make sense of life. And that's why I was reading all these philosophers and reading all these mythologies. And I just knew something was missing inside of me. And, it's different for different people, but I was running from a sense of insignificance. I just couldn't bear the fact that I would live and die, my life would have no meaning. And even when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, I started reading like Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein and Andre Norton and all these different physicists who created science fiction. Going, is there any meaning to life? And so with Jesus, it was, this is different than every other religion. Every religion tells me what I need to do to get to God. And they all have different strategies. To get to enlightenment, to get to nirvana, whatever it may be. But Jesus is the opposite. He doesn't tell you what you need to do to get to God. He tells you what God did to get to you. And I thought, if there is a God and he's all powerful and there's a break between our relationship, the only one who could actually cover the distance would be him. It couldn't be me. And in fact, if God is love, he would be the progenitor of all things. He would be the proactive force trying to get to me. So every religion that says God's up there on some mountain, or whatever it is, and you need to work to get to him, I discount immediately. I go, if that's who God is, then we're hopeless because he's nefarious, narcissistic, and indifferent to us. And the difference for me with Jesus is that Jesus is God's proactive love. And his messaging is, you don't have to do anything to get to me. I did everything to get to you.
Wow.
And then and I believe this, that the unifying principle of the universe is love.
Yeah.
And if the unifying principle of the universe is love, then the ultimate expression of that love is sacrifice. And that's how the cross makes sense to me. That God's ultimate act of declaration of love would be his sacrifice. And so I see the story of Jesus as a love story.
That's beautiful. Do you feel like we all have it in us to attempt to have a level of Christ-like consciousness? Do we need to be great? Do we need to do that?
I think we all have the image of God in us, all of us. And it's a part of what drives our ideals. I mean, think about human ideals. Where do we get them? Because, some people say, well, I can't believe in God because you can't prove God. And I understand that. But how do you prove peace? Because human history has never known peace. Like, why do we imagine a world without poverty? Because we've always known poverty. Why do we imagine things like justice? Because all we've known through history is injustice. We have never had a human story that expresses our ideals. Have you ever heard of the phenomenon of phantom pain?
Yeah.
If you lose an arm and years later, you still feel that arm, you feel the pain in that arm. But for phantom pain to happen, you have to lose something you once had. I think human ideals are the phantom pain of the soul.
Human ideals are the phantom pain of the soul.
The reason we can imagine love and peace and justice and mercy and compassion is because our souls have a latent memory of who we really are.
Yeah. And then we experience it in moments.
Yes, that's right.
And in places.
Yeah.
Right?
And we taste it, and we know. But isn't it odd that the exception is what we know should be the rule?
Mm. Interesting.
And that to me, so when you ask me, who is Jesus? Jesus is the one who makes us human again.
That's beautiful. I love that. Or when changing the subject a little bit towards money. Money is it's very important. It can affect a lot of our lives. It can really affect our health, our well-being, our living situation. And you've had a certain level of success yourself. And how do you see the connection between money and God and spirituality?
Yeah, that's a really tricky space for me.
Yeah.
Ironically, it's the opposite for me. I could have made way more money if I didn't identify myself so closely to Jesus.
Really?
The church. Because I made sure I didn't create as much wealth so that people wouldn't question my sincerity.
Do you think that was necessary?
No.
Okay.
But I think I thought it was necessary.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I was trying to be sincere.
Yeah.
I didn't have any backup plan. I didn't know how to do this.
Yeah.
I knew that I had this ability to create community.
Yeah.
That's how I started Mosaic in Los Angeles. And I wanted to create a space for people to be able to belong and to be loved, to be accepted. And I was pretty much a monastic when I was in my 20s. I mean, everything I owned, I had in a paper bag. I mean, when I married my wife, we slept on the floor because I wouldn't buy a bed because I said it was a luxury. So I was a very monastic kind of person. I was an extremist and, anti-materialist, the whole thing. And it took me some growing up and maturity to go, you're reacting to people, not to principles.
Huh.
And,
right.
Because we're all a product of who we love, who we hate, who we admire, who we don't admire, know? And so I think I was reacting in some ways. But as I grew in my own faith, because I spent 10 years working with the poor, and I spent so much of those 10 years trying to get people who had money to invest their money, people who didn't have money.
Yeah.
And then one day it occurred to me I could cut out the middleman by using the gifts I actually had, make money, and then be generous.
Yeah.
And that was a huge part of the shift for me, was when I finally realized I have a moral responsibility to that I have a moral responsibility to create as much as I'm capable of creating, so that I can do the most good possible in the world. And that was a shift for me.
Now, you were generous before, though.
I was generous when I was 4.
Right. In fact, you say that when you and your wife met, or when you were first getting together, you're making like less than $20,000 a year, which is literally like poverty. But you didn't feel poor. You felt rich even in that moment. How do you have that mentality, man? How can you feel rich even though you were legitimately below the poverty line?
Yeah, I think for about 10 years, my average income was around $12,000 to $13,000 a year.
Wow. I mean, even if we adjust it or whatever, right? Still, we're talking
pretty poor.
Yeah.
But wow. I was able to walk in the rooms and help people with wealth see how they can make the world better.
Yeah.
And I had an ability to move millions of dollars, not through me, but around me. And I didn't care if it came to me or through me. I just cared if I was able to leverage that wealth and that power and that influence to do good in the world.
Yeah.
And so if you're moving millions and millions and millions of dollars by helping people care about people, how do you consider yourself poor?
Absolutely.
And so I never considered poverty or wealth based on what I had.
Yeah.
But what I was able to accomplish.
Love it. Yeah. Or you've also sat and been invited to a lot of mastermind groups where part of the requirement to be in that mastermind is you got to have a net worth of $100 million or more, things like that. So you've been you've been around that energy of multimillionaire type energy. What do you think is the thing that these people have the most in common?
Well, that's an interesting question. Aaron, my son, and I were talking about this yesterday. How
old's your son, by the way?
He's 35.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And on our Mind Shift podcast. And I said, look, most people that I know that are highly successful are running from something and running to something.
Okay.
And when they feel immature, it's because running from something is more powerful than running to something. So they're running from poverty.
Okay.
They're running from insignificance. They're running from their family that were underachievers or whatever it may be, And when you listen to people who have accomplished a lot from nothing, they're running from something.
Definitely. Yeah.
But there's a shift eventually where they're running to something.
Okay.
And they actually see a vision for their life or what they want to create or what they want to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's very superficial. They're running to, not superficial. Like I know one person, he was running to buying his mom a house. Mm-hmm. Like I'm gonna have so much wealth that my mom's never going to struggle again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have so much wealth that there's always gonna be food on the table.
Right.
But it can really play itself out as I'm going to prove to them I'm something. So what I'm running to is owning the yacht and owning the plane and having 5 mansions and, Well,
that was a big shift though, right?
Yeah.
Because actually when you first started telling that sort of story, it felt very wholesome to me.
Yeah,
it was like, I'm going to save my family.
Yes, and I know a lot of people weren't like that.
Right,
yes.
right.
Yeah.
To the house and the yacht, which is still okay too. Like, hey, if you can have a yacht.
It's just a different drive.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's actually more ego-driven there.
Right, of course.
It really isn't the yacht and the plane and the house and the girls in the jacuzzi.
It's the status or
the status.
The approval.
It's what other people think about me and say about me. And so you're actually being driven by a high ego need.
Right.
Which leaves you empty later because there's always someone more than you.
Yeah.
There's always someone more successful than you.
Always.
And so the moment you're living for comparison, you're in a deficit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So going back to that, so the most common thing that you feel like you see in those groups is that either they're running away from something or they're running towards something.
It's both. They're running from something and running to something.
And towards something.
Yeah.
Is there a healthy, is there something in there that's like a healthy adjective or something that you see that most people that are highly successful have?
Yes, you're running from the lesser expression of who you are to the highest expression of who you are.
That's where you see it being healthy.
Yes. So I'm running from the easiest version of Erwin.
Okay.
To the highest version of Erwin. Mm-hmm. And no one else can measure that.
Right. Right.
It's not a comparison to anyone else. I know what I'm leaving on the table because of my lack of discipline or my lack of passion or my lack of courage or my lack of love. And so I want to run from the lowest version of me toward the highest version of me.
That's beautiful. I think about that a lot myself. And I'll be honest, though. I call myself a recovering perfectionist. And there's a certain the theme of the not enoughness type thing is something that I think most of us at some point, deal with. But there's the not enoughness where I'm not enough, and then there's not enoughness of what I'm doing is not enough. I'm more on this side of like what I'm doing or what I'm achieving is not enough. The impact that I want to bring to the world, the impact is not enough. It's not reaching enough people as I want it to, whatever that is, right? So sometimes I struggle to find that healthy drive of what I'm doing is not enough because what I want to achieve is beautiful and great and has a greater purpose versus also like not, hitting myself with the whip on the back.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be careful not to be striving for acceptance, but working from acceptance. And when you feel like it's not enough, I just can't do enough. You have to realize, all right, your identity is in what you're doing, not in who you're becoming. You have to shift your identity to who you're becoming. And that way, because, some days I don't accomplish a whole lot.
Yeah.
Just to be really straight up, I'm like, I didn't get a lot done today. Yeah. But I'm still incredibly fulfilled with the person I'm becoming.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that's where your identity's safer. In a sense, the reason a lot of people have identity crises is because their identity's in their wealth or success or their power or their fame. And all those things are really fragile. Those are great outcomes, but they're terrible intentions.
Yeah.
And so if your intention is on success or wealth or power or fame, you're always vulnerable and you're always going to be fragile.
Right. Right.
But if your intention is focused on who you're becoming, no one can touch that. And your environment can't touch that. Yeah. Because even in the harshest, most difficult situations, you're still in control of who you're becoming.
Now, who you're becoming in theory, you never, actualize who you become. So who do you become? You become who you become literally the second that you die. That's who you kind of finally fully potentialize who you become, correct? So it's almost like this. It makes me think about this. I think it was in Return to Love by Marianne Williamson, and she talks about capacity versus potential, and talks about sort of potential being this sort of like a really tough thing to always deal with. Like, if you're never living up to your full potential, because your full potential you're going to actualize the day you die. So what is my maximum capacity today? Am I, right, that I can become? And so it kind of it gives you a little bit of peace. So it kind of reminded me of that concept. So, yeah.
I used to think that it was a tragedy if you died with potential.
Right. Like, you want to leave all the potential on the table. You've actualized it.
But the reality is that potential is exponential.
Mm-hmm.
So every time you actualize potential, it increases. So you'll never actualize your potential because it keeps growing as you keep growing.
You got to be okay with that, right? Of even thinking about you'll never actualize potential.
So
right?
I want to die with so much potential. People wished I'd lived another 50 years.
Oh, man. That's funny because, we grow up with that sort of mentality, whether, I played a lot of sports growing up, and you play with that. It's like, oh, that kid's not playing up to his potential.
Yeah.
She's not playing up to her potential. So that's a bad thing, right? It's seen as like a bad thing. You're not actualizing your potential. You're saying, hey, that's basically impossible. The more you grow, the more potential you have.
Yeah, I think what we're actually saying is that person isn't living up to their present potential or capacity. They've chosen a lower ceiling based on the choices they've made.
Yeah. I love the conversation. This is stuff that's so interesting to me. You say that success carries more weight than failure. And what I'm going to challenge on that is it's actually something that you said earlier, and even what a lot of professional athletes will say the opposite, right? You'll have somebody who's been in the arena, who's been in the Super Bowl, in the championship game. They say losing the Super Bowl hurt way more than winning feels good, right? Which is technically the opposite of saying that success weighs more than failure. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. In fact, I think you just proved my point without realizing. When you lose a Super Bowl, you feel the pain.
Yeah.
The likelihood that you will repeat that same level of effort the next year is almost minimal. If you feel that pain. In fact, when the Miami Dolphins, I think it's 1971, 72, they lost the Super Bowl. Don Shula, at the end of the game, said, I want you to remember what you're feeling right now. The next year, they went undefeated, the only undefeated professional football team ever, 17-0, won Super Bowl, because they felt the weight of that pain.
Yeah.
It's harder to repeat after you win.
Right.
Because you don't live up to the weight of the success.
Oh, okay.
And which is why, like, Tom Brady is an anomaly to win, whatever, seven Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Because most people, like, Shaq will just admit, like, he won one championship and he was happy.
Yeah.
It was over. He didn't have to drive to anymore.
Interesting.
And so when I say the weight of success, is what I mean by that is the weight of success has a higher likelihood to keep you from achieving at your highest level than the weight of failure. Because if you pay attention, failure wakes you up, but success can put you to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely.
and it's interesting because I like basketball, so I love the NBA.
Yeah, man, the players have been great.
I know, it's been amazing.
Oh my God.
So good. But there's almost not a single player that hasn't had a Jordan game. Even like the average players in the NBA have had a Jordan game, like that one game where they just go off and they shoot, 65%.
Jokic had a pretty good game last night, by the way.
Yeah,
but not
incredible.
Yeah,
but they can't repeat it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's where you can see. Oh, they have the talent. They have the potential.
Yeah,
but greatness is sustained excellence, and that's harder.
Yeah,
because success is weightier. And which is why a lot of times people, when they succeed, actually stop taking risks. It's because they're so afraid to not achieve the same level of success. So, I'm not saying that success hurts more than failure. Failure hurts way more. What I'm saying is that the weight of success, let's say when you make $50,000 a year, you may have an addictive personality, but you can't afford it. And then all of a sudden you're making $50 million.
Yeah.
And you can afford every addiction.
Yeah.
The weight of success is going to crush you because you can't carry that level of success.
Yeah.
And I mean, frankly, it's why a lot of marriages end. The weight of when you're making $50,000 a year together, you actually need each other economically. But I see so many guys when they get to 100 million, instantly their wives leave them.
Really?
And it's not interesting. It's not the husband who chooses to leave. They chose to live beneath their relationship up to the 100 million. The wife tolerated it and then left.
Huh.
Almost always the guy wants to save the marriage afterwards. And it's because the weight of success is so strong that you are now free to make your worst decisions.
Interesting.
And so you have to decide who you're going to be before you have that kind of success.
I was going to ask you, how do you, because someone can hear that and be very discouraged from success, right? And be very sort of like,
that's why you build those principles at the beginning. You know, I remember I spoke at this event a few years ago before the pandemic, and it was really odd. It was like this big event, and they had me do a podcast afterwards, and they asked me a strange question. They said, you know, speaking at this event's like a pinnacle experience. And, you know, how do you think you'll handle the weight of success?
Uh-huh.
And I thought, wow, you have a really high view of your event. But I told him, I said, well, I thought I was successful before I came here, before you let me know I wasn't. And you know, I just try to live my life even when I was making $12,000 a year, and as if I was living my optimal life, and I had all the same principles engaged then.
Yeah.
You know, so I was generous when I made nothing.
Yeah.
Because you don't become generous when you're rich.
Right. That's what you say. Success doesn't really change you. It simply exposes who you really are.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's why when people say ultimate power corrupts whatever is it? Ultimate power corrupts ultimately, or whatever it is. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's what it is. No, it doesn't. Yeah. Absolute power reveals absolutely.
Reveals absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't corrupt.
Yeah.
And it reveals. You now get to be who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So decide who you're going to be before you have that power.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Erwin, you've had a great amount of success and a certain level of fame too. And how do you personally stay grounded? Do you even have to do something to stay grounded? Or as you said, you already knew who you were. So it's not really, you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, I think some of it is paying attention to the closest people in my life.
Mm-hmm.
My son, Aaron, is 35. My daughter, Mariah, is 32. They both live within 5 minutes or so of me.
Yeah.
They choose to be two of my closest friends.
Oh, I love that.
That's
beautiful.
I've been married to Kim for 40 years. So these people know me, and what they say matters to me.
Yeah.
You know, and they're a force of nature. They have no problem telling me what they think or what they see. And so I don't let fans tell me how great I am, and I don't let them tell me how horrible I am.
Yeah.
Let the people who are really close to me tell me, hey, you got an issue.
Yeah.
And that's how I deal with it.
Okay.
You know, and so it's really the people in your inner circle.
Yeah.
That keep you grounded in life.
I love that. I love that. And you lead a large faith community, which is Mosaic in Los Angeles. How many people are a part of that?
We don't really count.
Okay. A lot.
A lot of people.
A lot. And
Yeah.
what would you say is like the average age of a lot of the people that
I think the average age of Mosaic is probably 26.
Very young.
That's young.
That's incredible. Yeah.
It's a very young
Congrats
generation.
with everything you're doing there. It's beautiful.
Thanks.
It's really beautiful. And you preach a lot around creativity. How does God want us to be creative humans?
Well, I mean, one of our basic foundational beliefs at Mosaic is that every human being is created in the image of God, and that every human being is created to create.
Mm-hmm.
That what makes humans distinct from every other species is that we actually have creative capacity, that we can imagine the future and create it, that we can materialize the invisible. And so a huge part of why I started Mosaic was I felt like oftentimes, especially Christian churches, seem to almost be at war with creativity. And I thought, how could spirituality and creativity be in opposition with each other? And
In what sense? Why?
they shouldn't be. You know,
How are you seeing it that it was at war with creativity?
because churches seem to hold on to tradition so much. It's like, you know, the buildings are 1,500 years old. The songs are 500 years old. The clothes is 50 years old.
Yeah.
Everything seems to be focused on the past. It's about preserving the past rather than creating the future. And really, if God is at the epicenter of a community, you should be creating the future. You should be inspiring visions and dreams and, creative imagination and uniqueness and talent and helping people discover that. So I just love a place that believes every human being has something intrinsically beautiful inside of them that's supposed to be a gift to the world. And so, when I started Mosaic, the metaphor I used was this mosaic of broken and fragmented pieces, because it's an art form created by broken pieces, especially when light strikes through it. And I wanted to say, look, we're just broken and fragmented people brought together in this extraordinary art form that makes us more beautiful, even especially when the light strikes through us.
I love that.
And that's been like the basic narrative of Mosaic. And so it is imperfect. We're all imperfect people.
Yeah.
There's no one who has it all together. We're all working this thing out and growing together and struggling together. And I just think it's a beautiful thing.
It is truly a beautiful thing. Truly beautiful thing. Erwin, is there something that you've never shared before that you'd like to share, or something that I didn't ask you that you're like, that'd be great if someone asked me this, and no one asks me this whenever I get interviewed or whenever I'm talking to someone?
That's an interesting question. I think maybe right now, when I'm looking at culturally, and some of my background, I think, is that I was a very naturally anarchist. I didn't trust institutions. I didn't trust governments. I didn't trust businesses. I didn't trust any organized system, including religion or whatever it may be. And one of the things that I think I've learned over my lifetime is that you find in the world who you are, and so if you have any desire, quote, to change the world, what you have to do is change yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think that, early on I was like, I want to change the world. I want to make the world better. I still do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the moment you change, you believe other people can change.
Yeah.
The moment you become trustworthy, you believe other people are trustworthy. The moment you become compassionate, you believe in a world full of compassion.
Yeah.
And so I just think that one thing that maybe comes to my mind is just that I don't fight the battle of right and wrong. And I fight the battle of like for beauty and wonder, to help us become the most beautiful expression of our own humanity. And that's why for me Jesus is so central and essential to me. I don't believe in Jesus because it's the belief system I grew up with.
Right.
And I don't follow Jesus because I think, I'm right and someone else is wrong. I think I was wrong and I found love. And in that love, I can be wrong all the time.
Yeah.
And so even in Mosaic, I tell people, look, I'm wrong all the time. I'm still trying to figure everything out. The main thing in life is to realize that what connects us together is when we love each other. What drives us is when we all help each other find hope in life. And this thing called faith isn't a noun, it's a verb. It's an engagement of life with courage and bravery, with honesty and truth. And I think when we all live in those, the world gets better.
Love that. That's beautiful, Erwin. I'll leave you with this question. What are 2 traits that a conscious leader must embody today in this world in 2024?
Empathy. I would say empathy and presence.
Empathy and presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need, to me, is like it's connecting deeply with other people where they are and seeing the world through their eyes and from the vantage point of their own soul. And then giving people the gift of your presence by not just showing up, but being fully present and not being distracted, not being in 50 other places and not being transactional, but just simply being present and giving people the gift of who you are.
I've done a lot of these podcasts. Presence is not a quality that I've heard before, and it's a beautiful one. It's a great one, and I think it's one that we've probably gotten away from the most because of technology and all of these things that are pulling us in a million directions. So presence it's a beautiful one. So yeah. Erwin, keep doing what you do. You're truly a conscious leader. Millions of people around the world are highly inspired by you. I'm very inspired by you. So thank you so much for being on. Truly an amazing human. Thank you.
Thank you so much, bro.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you like the show, please subscribe or share with a homie. It means the world to me. And honestly, straight up, just hit me up. The easiest way on Instagram, SEBNAUM. Ask me questions. I want to be here as a resource and a source of inspiration. I hope you have a beautiful rest of the day. Much love.